It is a beautiful sunny day here in Big Canoe, Georgia. It's 10 a.m.
Thank you, Tim. And I'm Bob Crouch, the president of the POA board, and call to order the 2020 annual meeting. I'll start with excerpts from a letter from our external auditor that Malden and Jenkins was engaged by the Big Canoe POA to count the ballots for the vote of the board of directors election and to approve lowering the quorum to as low as 25%. We are in agreement that a quorum has been met in this vote. So we're on with the annual meeting. Good morning, Big Canoe. Welcome to the 2020 annual meeting. I'd like to thank the property owners, the general manager and his staff, Bobby Jones Links, and the board for their support in 2020. Vice President Lou Stevenson led the effort resulting in the professional registry announcement this week. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Candace Robertson, treasurer, chaired a team resulting in the preparation and now ongoing vote for capital contribution fund. Candace, thank you.
Thanks for allowing me to serve in that role.
Wayne Crawford, the secretary of the board, was very involved in clubhouse kitchen renovation, planning for the chimneys enhancements, and working with the water utility. Wayne, thank you, and we're going to miss you. Regis Valinsky led the negotiation of the Bobby Jones Links agreement and the successful vote of the Creek 9 renovation. Thank you, Regis.
Thank you for the acknowledgement, and certainly both efforts were truly a team accomplishment.
And last and certainly not least, Phil Baldwin, the developer director, provided wise counsel on a variety of topics and reported the red hot housing market. Thank you, Phil. We're looking forward to your continued involvement. This has been an unusual, unprecedented, and challenging year. The new board wasn't seated until March, which normally happens in December. So we've been operational for 9 months. At that time, we had an interim general manager, very competent interim general manager from Bobby Jones Links. But we knew the word interim meant that this was not going to happen for a long time. So we started a search for the general manager, which culminated in hiring Scott Auer. And he has been functioning for 6 months. We were in negotiation, as I mentioned, Regis, with the Bobby Jones Links agreement. That occurred the signature of that occurred in late May. So that's been, again, about a 6-month effort. And we also noticed early on that the World Health Organization declared a pandemic, and we had to manage through that. With all of this going on, with all of these challenges, the board faced many additional challenges this year while achieving some great successes. Unfortunately, the association has been forced to spend significant time and money responding to a series of requests, questions, and disagreements regarding various issues facing the community from a very small, less than a handful of discontented owners. A vast majority of the owners have expressed great support of the work the POA has undertaken and of the direction taken by the board and management. There is one more unprecedented action that must be taken at this year's annual meeting. For the first time in the long history of Big Canoe, a request has been presented by a property owner to make the association's membership list available during this meeting. As such, in accordance with Georgia law and the bylaws of the association, we must advise all members that you may access the official membership list for the sole purpose of communicating with other members concerning the annual meeting via the following secured website link. And there you have it. Members may access this list at any time during the entirety of the annual meeting. That said, let's look to the accomplishments that were achieved in this environment and look to the bright future of 2021. I am pleased to report that Phil Baldwin will continue as the developer director in 2021. We also have two excellent candidates who will join the 2021 board who have been elected. They are very well prepared as they have been attending board meetings for many months now. They have excellent credentials, experience, and have demonstrated the enthusiasm to get on with the job of improving Big Canoe. Scott and I are going to be presenting some information on various aspects of accomplishments, and we'll start out with finances. There are the high level financial numbers, if you put up, yes, show that we are financially well managed and healthy. We're profitable. F&B losses have been significantly reduced, and we are steadily paying off our debt. Next is, what have we done in communications? In communications, there have been major improvements in two-way communications. Transparency in board deliberations is available and published. The process to question and manage responses is functioning, and there are opportunities for property owners to participate in specific interest areas. The Property Owner Satisfaction Survey established a benchmark from which improvements can be measured. It was important in setting budget priorities, and there will be a survey early in 2021 which will demonstrate results. The broad participation that we had in the initial survey is very much appreciated, and we ask all property owners to please continue to participate and respond to that survey. Capital investments. We've made significant steps to invest in Big Canoe. Scott is going to detail some of the 2020 actions, but one of the things I'd like to highlight is the Creek 9 vote sent a very strong message that we should continue to maintain our facilities and amenities to a very high standard. We now have a vote pending on the capital contribution fee to create an alternative source of future capital projects that will augment assessments, so that assessments aren't the only source of paying for capital projects or necessary capital projects. We have achieved this even though the pandemic has placed significant obstacles on social interaction. If we look to what have we done to improve the property owner experience, we became the first mountain community with 1 gigabit internet service. That has been very, very favorably responded to. People are able to work at home much more comfortably, and makes our community much more attractive. We provided curbside dining, including a very popular Thanksgiving option. We brought in prominent vendors to Big Canoe to augment clubhouse F&B. So we've given some other options that has also proved to be very popular. We've also invested in public safety in the 2021 budget, so that we'll be manning the North Gate 24/7 and establishing patrols. Next is the housing market and property values, demonstrated by the record number of sales, over 375 sales now this year, a record low number of inventory listings, and a 20% increase in the average sale price indicates the value of living in Big Canoe that property owners and prospective property owners are placing. The significant strides have been made in clearly defining the proper roles of the board and management. We have hired a very effective general manager. He's supported by Bobby Jones Links, and empowered by the board, enables the results that we've seen in 2020 and provides a basis for success in 2021. Let's go to the next slide and I will say that before I turn it over to Scott, I thank all of the property owners of Big Canoe, the volunteers, others that are just interested in living their life and enjoying in Big Canoe, for all of the significant contributions that they have made over the year, and look forward to working with you as a member of the board again next year. Scott, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, neighbors. It pains me greatly in my first annual meeting. I'm sitting by myself in my office in a beautifully decorated canoe lodge instead of sitting in the beautiful chapel with hundreds of you. That would be a lot more fun. So let's hope that next year we're all back together. But in the meantime, we will do the best we can using the technology we have. So the very first thing that I set out to do way back on June 8th, which seems like a long, long time ago now, was to spruce up Big Canoe a little bit. As a property owner, I felt like there was a bunch of things that had been deferred for a while, and the board was incredibly supportive of letting me move some money around and start that process. So I'd like to give you guys a view on everything that Jason and his team and a bunch of contractors have been able to do. So we start with the roundabout, which is a work in process. Right now, it looks a little bit like Stonehenge. There's more coming. So this is just the beginning. If you look through there, you can see some beautiful new holly trees that were planted, all the invasives and crazy things that people have planted over there over the last 10 or 15 years have been removed. And we got a bunch of boulders around, and the boulders are there to keep cars from driving into our beautiful new hollies, which it's amazing what happens out at that roundabout late at night. So there is more to come on that. And we'll also be working next spring to take care of the little islands that surround the roundabout so that when people drive over them, we won't have curbs laying all over the place, which is what we usually do. So more to come on the roundabout, but it's looking a lot better than it was back in June. Next slide. The main entrance to Big Canoe, which I think looks stunning now, and that's an incredible picture of where we all live, and that's what we get to see every day, and many times we drive by that. But if I was sitting at home and looking for a place to live and I pulled up that slide, I'd be pretty excited about visiting Big Canoe. So the guys did a great job on that, and our decorations, as usual, look stunning. So next slide. This is like one of my favorite buildings in Big Canoe. I would live here, I think. It's just the perfect, it is Big Canoe. It's the essence of Big Canoe. And if you ever need help with picking paint colors, Trina is a really, really good source. So this is all of our new paint colors that we're using on many of our buildings. And it looks just stunning. And the gates have been refreshed and are no longer held together with duct tape, and they also look really nice as well. So I think we make a very nice welcome now to our community. Next slide. Clubhouse. This is the center. This is what everybody sees. This is where everyone goes. So again, stunning new colors. The roof that was done last year now looks great. New gutters are coming. We're not done yet. So the gutters are the next thing to make a change on. And all the landscaping was also spruced up and refreshed, and bad stuff kind of pulled out. And it just looks, I think, fantastic. Thanks to all the clubhouse staff for doing an incredible job of decorating. It does look like a winter wonderland in there. It's just fantastic. So more to come too on the clubhouse. Next slide. Another beautiful view with still some fall colors, which are still hanging around, which is kind of neat. Next slide. And I love this. My wife Cindy and I go, we eat at Duffer's on the weekend. And if you sit there and you look now at the back of the clubhouse and look out over the lake, again, it's a $1 million view. I mean, I'm sure Phil takes people here all the time because it just sells the property right here. So I didn't even know we had a trellis on the corner of that building. We do. And the landscaping guys have done a beautiful job getting things back in shape. And again, the paint looks fantastic. Next one. Duffers looks great now on the outside. There is renovation that Robert and Jason are doing on the inside. Soon you'll see new paint, new countertops, some really nice imagery. It won't look like a 1950s cafe anymore. So it'll start looking real nice on the inside soon as well. Next one. It's really hard to get a bird to pose like Tim Moran did, but he did. And there is our starter shack that's also been refreshed, and no birds were harmed in the filming of this video. Next. And the Canoe Lodge, my home. This is where I spend a lot of my time. Again, another new set of colors, different from the clubhouse, that brought the buildings, I think, into the 21st century, but also preserve the character of Big Canoe, which is so, so important. Next slide. And the activity center building. So we've also refreshed all the buildings in the village core. These buildings all have new roofs as well. So it had been a little while since that had been done. So you've got all new metal roofs and new shingle roofs on all the village core, and all the rotten trim is gone, and all the paint has been replaced and done beautifully. Next. There is now the outside of the chimneys. That beautiful 1972 mustard color is gone. And again, I think the chimneys look stunning. It's all the bad trim, bad windows, bad roofing, all of that has been replaced. And as you'll see for our projects for next year, we will start to move into the interior of the chimneys and bringing that up to date as well. There we go, another view of the outside. And yes, it did snow this week, way back when on Monday. And the sun came out for Tim to take these pictures. Go ahead, next one. Wellness Center. If you didn't know, it's a really pretty building. It has trim on it. All of that was the same color and just looked very bland. It's now very much a show place and a place that we can be proud of to bring people to tour the community. Next. And the beach club as well looks quite nice. Off of the picture way to the right is the antique swim dock that we have and that we launch canoes and things from. That is on our list to repair in 2021. So step by step, we're getting beach club back in good shape. Next. And the Clay Tech. Thank you, thank you, thank you, tennis folks, for being so patient. Very happy that the board approved this. We could finally get after this process, get rid of all those moldy old Clay Tech courts and turn this into two more beautiful brand new clay courts, which are right in the center of our facility, which looked really, really bad and nobody could play on them. So this will help our court capacity and also be a really, really nice show place for the tennis facility. Next. And the kitchen. A million years ago, Wayne Crawford led the effort to get this in good shape. It has borne great dividends. I don't know about you, I dine there at least once a week, and the food quality, the food presentation, the menu itself, the food is hot, the food is consistent. If you haven't been to the clubhouse for a while, please go back to the clubhouse. It's really good, and this kitchen has an awful lot to do with that. So we're really happy how that has worked out. And next slide. And then we promised that we'd update you on the pot of gold called the Lake Pettit Dam. And that was not staged or photoshopped. That is a real picture. Basically, we set out to do a few things with the dam. We wanted to make sure that we did a very, very detailed, comprehensive inspection of all the working parts of the dam. For instance, we went down with a dive team several months ago and did a thorough inspection 100 feet down to actually look at the outside of the sluice gate, all of the linkages, make sure that there was no obstructions, make sure that we cleaned out any silt that was around the bottom of the gate. All that was done. The sluice gate passed its inspection very well. They went all the way up the linkages that go to the little wheel on the top that lets you open the sluice gate. All of that looked in really good shape. Just very, very, very slight minor repairs were done on that. And the last thing that we had to do on that system was to inspect the lower outlet tube. When you open a sluice gate, the water goes somewhere. It goes into a culvert that's about 36 inches wide. It's 800 feet long. It runs under the whole dam. It runs under the road. It runs under part of Playfield Park, and then it lets the water from Lake Pettit come out. So that required really special purpose camera work to be able to run a camera that 800 feet up through the entire pipe, which hadn't been done for a while. And the good news is the condition of the pipe looks extremely good. Again, to quote another quote coming from the guys is, nothing alarming was found. They were able to run the camera the full 800 feet. They actually got to the back of the sluice gate. So we've looked at the front and now we've looked at the back. And they said sluice gates often, when they do TVA inspections and stuff, they usually look like the Titanic on the inside. So because they're metal and they're underwater and they're all crusty and stuff like that. Ours looked really, really good. They were actually amazed and surprised at how good it looked. There was some debris in the bottom of the tube, probably from construction, quite honestly, back in the 70s, gravel and things of that nature. And they were able to clean out about 95% of that. So at this point in time, they are going to build a plan. Geosyntac, our engineering firm that is working with us on the dam, is going to build a plan for actually operating the sluice gate in first quarter. So all things passed with flying colors on the inspection, and now it's time to make sure we can actually open it and, more importantly, close it once we open it. So that will be coming in first quarter. You may recall at an older meeting, we have hired Geosyntac to do a comprehensive review of everything about the dam. Look at all the current Georgia state regulations, look at all of the measurements that we take coming out of they have their piezometers, technical term for instruments that are embedded in the dam that measure the amount of water on the interior of the dam, things like that. It's an earthen dam, so there's always a little bit of water moving through it. It's supposed to do that. That's how it's designed. So they measure those kinds of things. They will be putting together a comprehensive plan for us that is due at the end of this month that basically will give us like a 5-year roadmap of maintenance things that they feel we should embark on, or not necessarily clear projects, but things that they want us to do. For example, once we check the sluice gate, we will lower Lake Pettit a little bit. That will let us thoroughly inspect the spillway and see if there's any repairs or anything that need to be done to the spillway. So a very comprehensive step-by-step engineering plan of all the things that we need to look at in the dam over the next 5 years. We'll also have a complete operating manual that will be documented for us. So that will be here long after I'm gone, hopefully well into the future, so that when people say 15 years from now, what are we supposed to do to the dam every single year? We'll have that complete operating manual in place, kind of like you wouldn't have a car without an operating manual. We need an operating manual for the dam as well. So all of that will be coming in place in first quarter. So far so good, nothing alarming. Everything's in good shape. Fourth quarter inspection looked good. We just want to make sure that we have a very detailed, comprehensive plan in place for the next 5 years. So that's what we're working on. Next slide. And I just wanted to thank everyone. This has been a really, really tough year. This was a fun year to become the general manager in the summer and watch, everything happen with COVID and have to redo all of our financials and try to guess what would happen and what amenities would be open and what the governor was going to do the next month and all of these things. And it's been very trying time for the whole community, I think. But in general, the majority of folks here have been great and have been observing all of our necessary COVID restrictions. And even when you don't agree with me, you've been really polite and said, yep, I get it. I understand you're doing a really hard job. I understand you have to manage the whole community. And people have been following our rules and our guidelines, and we appreciate that. So the good news is, the cavalry is coming. I keep saying that. It can't come soon enough, but it's going to be a few very, very, very tough months, I think, is what we're seeing, from all credible information sources, hospitals, you know, all of the CDC, all the people we talk to. It's going to be a tough winter. So we have to keep our guard up. Please keep following the restrictions. Masks are all we got at this point in time. Don't let your guard down. And as soon as we can have a plan together that talks about how everyone here can start to get the vaccine and where you have to go and are we going to bring it here and things like that, we will certainly be spending a lot of time publicizing that as we learn more. But please keep up your guard and thank you for everything you've done so far. Next slide, please. So that's what we've done in the last 6 months. Let's talk about what we're going to do in 2021, which is actually a lot of fun. Next. So first of all, we do groundbreaking on Creek 9. That actually will start in earnest in late February. Be warned, things will look a lot worse before they look a lot prettier. So all that, you know, hidden problems that were underground, those are all going to be exposed. And all that, you know, beautiful lipstick we had on the pig is going to be removed and things are going to look pretty shoddy for a little while and then they're going to look stunning. So it'll be kind of interesting for us to see what the bottom of Lake Sconti looks like, for example, because the lake isn't that deep. And when we drain it a little bit, you're going to get to see that. So some things like that are coming, which will be sort of entertaining in a weird way. But we will be getting into Creek 9 very soon. Next. Postal facility parking. We have a couple different plans going on. We're looking long range at, you know, where does the post office need to be? Should it be moved? How do we renovate it? Things like that. In the short term, we've got to deal with the parking situation. And it's just getting, not only does it look bad, it's also feels rather unsafe and is way overdue for a renovation. So more coming on that. Next. New fire truck. First time in anyone's memory. We're not buying a used piece of equipment. We are actually specifying a fire truck specifically for the unique needs of Big Canoe. Our houses are built on the side of mountains. They're usually, you know, multiple stories, and our trucks go up and down, you know, very, very high areas. So this is a specially designed truck for Big Canoe. It's pretty exciting for the fire guys. Next. Chimneys renovation. I showed you the outside. It looks terrific from the outside. You go inside, it looks like 1972. So we need to deal with some things like HVAC systems and ADA compliance and some things of that nature, as well as making the building much more useful and a multi-purpose facility for the community to use during the week. So it just doesn't sit there empty all week. So more coming on the chimneys. Next. Marina docks. This is a project John's been championing for a while. Our docks are too close. If you own a boat on one of the docks closest to the road, you got to be a great captain to get that boat in and out of there. So looking at doing some things on the docks to make it safer and a little better access. Next. And the Northgate guardhouse. From the outside, it looks good. You don't want to go inside. Inside also looks like 1978 probably, and it's also got some issues. It's built on multiple levels, which is really strange. So if you're one of the guards and you're going up and down all night long, because we are going to staff it 24/7 again, it needs to be redone. There needs to be a safe house in there as well, in case there was ever any danger at the gate, and there is no safe house. So that is being taken care of as well. Next. Indoor tennis. So we're taking care of Clay Tech. The indoor tennis court is in great need of paint and new insulation and total refreshing. And that is on our agenda for this spring. Thank you again for your patience, tennis guys. It's coming. Clubhouse interior spruce up. We did the outside. Now as we close in January, there'll be a lot of refreshing inside. Not only spruce up, but replacing worn carpet with hardwoods, refinishing the hardwoods we have, some painting, and some mechanical repair. So more coming on the clubhouse. Bocce facility. We have been going through a very detailed procedure, starting with very clear specifications forming a committee, having the entire bocce community see the results of that spec that the committee generated. They visited other facilities. We're going to have a first-class new bocce facility. And again, construction of that should start in the spring. And we have a really, really good business case for that. That is an amenity. The bocce folks will pay for that. They've been inconvenienced for a while now with a bocce facility that has been really impossible for them to use. So a new one coming. Next. Lots of road paving. We couldn't do that much of road paving this year because unfortunately our infrastructure, kind of like the golf course, our water infrastructure may have looked okay from the outside when you saw the tanks, but underground, it didn't look so good. They told me right now, yesterday, there are still 75 active leaks that they are dealing with. So building a water system in a mountain is really hard. And this one wasn't always maintained that well by the developer and stuff in the past. So it is being taken care of, which means lots of holes got put in our roads, which means next year is catch-up time. So lots of road paving in 2021. Next. New swim dock, I mentioned that before. So the outside of the building looks good. We need to repair some of the infrastructure now around the beach club. So new swim dock coming in fall of 2021. Next. And more to come. Yeah, the list keeps growing. So project management is going to be a key thing that we do. And quite frankly, this list is one of the reasons that we've come to the community and asked for the vote on the capital contribution fund. A lot of these things are not just wild, crazy ideas of, oh, let's go do this, let's go build this, whatever. These are things that Big Canoe is going into its 50th year, 50th anniversary in 2022, which is going to be a really fun year for us, by the way. But in the meantime, we got a lot of things that need to be taken care of and rejuvenated to get us back to the preeminent community that we all bought into. And I think the CCF is really a key part of that. So ballots are coming out early next week. You should start to receive them. Please give it your greatest consideration. Every one of these projects goes through my team first, goes to the finance committee. The finance committee is not an easy yes board. Believe me, they do their diligence on, did you get the 3 quotes? What exactly you're doing? What are the specs? What is the business case? We tear that stuff apart with the finance committee. And then we go and do it all over again with the board. So we carefully consider each one of these projects. And the CCF funding is a really important part of that. So next slide, please. And that's a really good tee up into 2020 financials. Let's talk about that. Next slide. So this is through 10/31. I'll see November numbers, which I think are going to be very strong as well. I'll see those next week, but the annual meeting falls about a week early for that. So this is through 10/31. Right now, our general assessments and other operating revenue are running about $73,000 to the good. Operating department expense is about $113,000 to the good, and we'll go into that a little more on the next slide. Amenities in a COVID year, unbelievable, have done extremely well, $409,000 to the good versus forecast. Depreciation, we didn't build as much as we thought we were going to when we laid out the original depreciation schedule for 2020. So 113 to the good on depreciation. And that leaves us with a net income before extraordinary items of 708,000 to the good versus forecast. And if you look at the extraordinary items, which are usually storm damage and things like that, up until November, we were doing really well on that. So that landed an extra 16,000. So 724,000 to the good versus forecast, which means at the moment, as of 10/31, we were trending towards a net income of $1.689 million versus a forecast of 965,000. Next slide. This is the kind of the drill down on that 113,000 on operating expenses. So revenues slightly higher, and you say, what are revenues on operating expenses? They're things like road impact fees largely go into revenue. So a little bit higher on revenue. Payroll expenses certainly under. This has been a tough year to hire people. You can imagine, I mean, you hear that a lot at Big Canoe. It's always tough to hire anyway, because we're kind of located right in the middle of two cities that are, 30 minutes apart from us. But with all the COVID things and with the unemployment benefits that have been around, it's been hard to staff. So we've gotten an awful lot done, even running light on some of the people that we wanted. So lots of great effort from the staff to get all that accomplished. So payroll expenses ran under by about 57, and we've also been controlling our expenses tightly. So that basically gets us the 113,000 to the good. Let's go amenities. Next slide. Amenities, 231,000 to the good in a COVID year. And the three folks that crushed that would be our friends in golf, who actually are going to do about the same number of rounds that were originally projected before we even knew how to spell COVID, which is amazing. The marina just blew things out of the water. Oh, that is a funny pun. Actually, they didn't really blow anything out of the water. They blew their numbers out of the water. They did it extremely well with all the folks who couldn't travel, couldn't do vacations, and had a beautiful time on our lakes. So again, mostly property owners, though. It still skews 75% property owners, 25% guests. So we all had a good time on the lake. I can still never get a boat, but that's okay. Anyway, so we did well there. Cost of sales, a little bit over, as you would expect. If revenues go up, your cost of sales are going to go up slightly as well. Payroll expenses, largely that underrun on payroll is from food and beverage. Again, just can't hire quite enough people. So we'll talk a lot more about food and beverage here on the next slide. And operating expenses, we controlled those tightly as well. So the amenities actually delivered $409,000 before depreciation as a variance, a positive variance of $409,000. Next slide. And this is, I show this every month. This is something we pay a huge amount of attention to. Food and beverage, as we all know, in 2019 was just a really hard year for food and beverage. So they lost $780,000. If you look down that column under 2019, payroll expense is the thing. 81%. You can't run a food and beverage operation with 81% payroll. The next column was what Gautam set up for us. He was our interim GM and was also brought in originally as a consultant to help with food and beverage. Target more like 55% is where you want your payroll expenses to be. Year to date through 10/31, we have lost $380,000 on food and beverage. And you look at our payroll and you're like, oh my gosh, Scott, what happened there? It's just as bad as it was. No, we, if you may remember, way back when COVID happened, we decided to pay all of our full-time employees for one whole month of salary. Even though we were closed, we paid all of our part-time folks for half a month. So it's actually better to look at June through October. And there you'll see that our cost of sales are in a really good place, about 35%. Payroll's running about 59%. Just a smidge higher than Gautam's original plan. Operating expenses are slightly under. Cost per sales dollar is $1.02. That means basically we're almost break even. So June through October, we've lost $17,000 in food and beverage. So a really amazing turnaround so far. Lots more work to do. Lots of training going on over there. But we are turning a corner. And like I said, if you haven't been there for a while, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you go back. Next slide. Sales of properties. This is kind of interesting. The mustardy color there is the 2020. And if you look at the first part of the year, you'll see the mustardy color is well below all the other numbers. Well, you would expect that. It was COVID, March, April, May. Just, nobody wanted to go out. Real estate was dead. Nobody was doing any showings. That world ended in July, August, September, October, and November's not on here yet, but it's just as strong. We have just blown our sales out of the water. It's incredible that we only have 30 some properties for sale. It may even be lower. Phil will probably say something about that. But it's amazing. Everyone wants to live here. And that's a wonderful testament to Big Canoe and the community that we've built and the infrastructure we now have with the better water systems, with the high-speed internet, with all the sprucing up we're doing. We're showing really nicely. And more to come, but this is amazingly strong numbers. Next slide. And long-term debt, we've done well here as well. On 12/31/2019, we had about 7 million of debt. That's everything that's long-term property purchase, including the restructured clubhouse debt, was about 7 million at year end. This year, that's projected to be 6 million. So we paid down about $1 million of our long-term debt this year. Next slide. Cash position, extremely strong. Operating cash is what I live and die by. So this is basically what we pay for your operations. All of my folks, my department is out of here. And so versus beginning of the year, we still have about 3.3 million right now at the end of October of operating cash. The builder compliance funds down a little bit. You would expect that because we have been building a lot of houses. So the money that people put down has been turning because people have been building and finishing their houses and closing on them. So 272 there. We established at the beginning of the year, you may remember the board instituted $25 in your assessments, in my assessments, every single month. That goes into the master plan fund. That is where the money is coming from for the Creek 9 renovation, and in the future where things will come from for that long list of big projects. Some of those are under the master plan and some of them are in our normal capital budget, but that is where Creek 9 is coming from. That is also when the CCF passes, that is where that money will go into that master plan fund as well. Capital replacement fund, we established that at the beginning of the year as well, so it became much more transparent. The difference between operating cash and capital replacement money, so that we could no GM in the future could play a shell game where you basically paid for didn't do a painting of a building or something because you wanted to spend more on capital. It's now much clearer what is coming out of operating and what is actually being funded for routine capital replacement. So every single month we transfer money into that Wells Fargo bank account in an amount equal to our monthly depreciation. And so we have about $1 million sitting there for that capital replacement fund. And that's what we use for roads and bridges and new roofs and things of that nature. So restricted capital reserve fund is the original basically fund that was set up when we did all of the restructuring of the debt and things of that nature multi-years ago. That is what we tend to think of as the emergency fund. If you take money from there, it does need to be repaid back within a fixed amount of time. We have never taken any money from there and have no plans to do so at the moment. So that fund continues to grow in its balance. So bottom line, we're in good shape. In total cash, we are up to 9.4 million. And again, we all voted as property owners to spend 2.2 million on Creek. So we know that out of that 9.4, 2.2 is going to the much overdue renovation of our golf course infrastructure on the Creek 9. Next page. And now we'll segue into 2021. And Jane and I will split that. And I'll start out telling you how we approached the 2021 budget. Next slide. So the first thing is I asked the board to do what they had done the year before, which I thought was great. I would give the finance committee and give the general manager some high-level board goals. And they were, do not increase operational assessments for 2021. Do not increase any property owner amenity fees, but consider raising non-property owner amenity fees. Base all budgeted expenses on true bids wherever ever possible. And certainly we went through with a fine-tooth comb many hours explaining to ourselves, to Bobby Jones, with Bobby Jones, the finance committee and the board, all the reasons behind every single expenditure that we wanted to do. Net income after depreciation should be enough to provide for debt and our lease payments. Consider adding additional public safety personnel. We'll talk about that in a minute. Provide continuous attention to deferred maintenance. Absolutely. And improve garbage and the recycling appearance and function. Next slide. My goals to my department was I want my net income before depreciation to be somewhere between 4.1 and 4.25 million. Where did that number come from? Well, I know that I have about $1 million of debt service I need to pay every single year. And I know that I have about $3 million of capital, which is equal to our normal depreciation schedule. So add 3 and 1, and that's 4. And I wanted to preserve a little bit of contingency because I'm going into another COVID year. So that is why I came up with 4.1 to 4 1/4. And then we did, as Bob mentioned, a property owner survey. We got that. That was not something we just put on the shelf and say, wow, we did a survey. Yay, didn't we do great? We look at those numbers all the time, and we use that as guidance into where we needed to spend money going into the 2021 budget. Where are we going to put our resources? And we'll talk about that too. Keep going. So budget assumptions, COVID implications continue through June. I wish I knew whether that was too soon, too aggressive, whatever. You know, we've taken our best assumptions as to when we think that the vaccine will be widely distributed. So that means that the fitness memberships were probably going to remain pretty low for us going into June, and probably our inside dining will be below historical levels because obviously you can't sit out on the veranda too well in February, and some people are just not comfortable indoors, even with masks and all the safety protocols we do. We needed to consider that that's going to have an impact. All positions, job descriptions, and wages were examined and modified where required. We did not just take what we had before and carry it over. Everything got looked at. Every job description got looked at. New positions were created as required by the survey. So we looked again at where are we falling short? Where do property owners want us to invest? And we invested accordingly. Ground up redesign of food and beverage. We challenged the food and beverage guys. If you walked in here today as an investment, capitalist and said, I'm buying the clubhouse and I want to run it as a more profitable operation, what would you do if you didn't look at it as just a clubhouse and looked at it more like home restaurant, which is what everybody kept saying in 2019. Hey, how come home can do that and we can't? We've looked at it that way now. And because there's no food minimums or anything here, we said it really just doesn't make sense to do property owner discounts on food and beverage purchases. So we eliminated that. And that basically brings 29,000 into the food and beverage operation. It really wasn't fair to burden that operation with a property owner discount. And so we also, under Bobby Jones, asked them to build a whole new amenity plan that will be rolling out second quarter of 2021. And that nets an additional 20K of net income immediately to the bottom line, and hopefully some upside beyond that. But right now, 20,000 is built in for that. Next. So key features, the result of all of that and many, many hours of work is the food and beverage loss we believe will be about 379,000 in 2021, even with the COVID assumptions, compared to a loss of 779 in 2019. So 400,000 to the good. Planned fee changes net is about 88,000 positive. We're improving the storage yard greatly, but we're also bringing the fees of the storage yard more in line with what every RV facility in Georgia basically charges for storing some of these things. So much better facility, slightly higher fees as well. Marina slip fees will be increased after we fix the docks, as I mentioned before, after we move them. Contractor transponders are going up and they will renew them every year. And cart fees are going up $1 for 18 holes. And that was built into the original plan when we bought those very great golf carts that we all use. So that was planned by the finance committee a year ago. We're just implementing that last dollar at this point. And then really, really important to me is investment in human capital. So this sets the stage for the next 50 years of Big Canoe and making sure we're putting our money in the right places. So first of all, a merit increase of 2%. That's a cost of $131,000 in the budget. That is not a blanket merit increase. We are looking at every single person, what their accomplishments are, how did they do on their goals. It's not just a blanket. Benefits increase. This is, boy, health insurance is just tough. We only found 2 people who would even quote on our health insurance, and that created a 23% increase. It started out as 29. We got it down to 23, and that's with employees actually taking a big chunk of cost increase as well. So that's a $146,000 impact to our budget. With Bobby Jones, we're looking at some things we might be able to do in the future in 2021, but at this point in time, those are not locked. So we've built that. We were renewing at a 23% increase. By the way, the other people who would bid on us wanted a 40% increase. So you think 23 is bad. It could have been much worse. Communications and marketing. That was one of the worst scoring things that we had on our property owner survey. And I think things like the Ask the POA service that we put in place has been a lifesaver for me, a lifesaver for our staff. People love it. They're getting answers quickly. We can track the answers. It's terrific. There's so much more we can do here on communications and internal marketing. So we are going to really beef up the staffing in that department. That's a $63,000 impact. Public safety, firefighters, for a while, we have gotten by with a whole lot of volunteers. According to OSHA, when you have a structure fire, 2 folks need to be in the house, 2 folks need to be out of the house in case there's an emergency situation. We need to make sure we're fully staffed with not just volunteers to make sure we can abide by that. It also lets us focus on patrols. We've never had in many years enough staff there to get out, get around, do the rules enforcement. We got plenty of rules here at Big Canoe. The problem is being able to enforce it. So that's going to help a bit, I think quite a bit on the enforcement side. Also, North Gate staffing, we're bringing it back. When I bought here, when my wife and I came here, one of the reasons we came here is this was a 24/7 gated, staffed, safe community. We're bringing back that 24/7 staffing at the North Gate. And then, of course, when we do a budget, we plan for fully staffing food and beverage. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that more. The unemployment situation is still being talked about in Congress. Don't know what's going to happen there, but we're planning on fully staffing it. So you can move to the next slide. And some of the other key features is looking at an investment in Big Canoe. So the type of things we're going to do is start the Firewise project around our POA buildings. This was a Leadership Big Canoe project a few years ago. Didn't go too far. We're bringing it back. So this is putting in more hardscape around our buildings that are safer from a fire standpoint. And in the future, they'll save us costs because we're not using as much mulch. We don't have to refresh everything as much every single year. Additional plants and shrubs, that scored pretty high on the survey. People want the facility to look, better and better. Interior painting, you saw all the exterior stuff we did, a lot more to come. Interior now that we're switching into in 2021. I talked about the wood floor maintenance at the clubhouse, more window cleaning, more tree trimming, basic ongoing maintenance features. Also built into the budget, property owner activities, God willing, we can return in mid-2021 to all the fun stuff that we used to do. It's been so hard not to do those things. So they are built into the budget beginning mid-2021. Property insurance is a 12% increase. That never goes down either, unfortunately. And garbage facility, we're looking, we're going to make the gate going into that facility transponder access so that we don't have contractors dumping a lot of stuff in there. We will also be adding an additional compactor and I think moving all of the yard refuse back over to the borrow pit because those bins are just always too full. So some improvements coming to garbage facility. And on the capital side, we have a budget this year about $3.6 million. As I said, road paving is about double what we normally spend. Swim dock, as I mentioned, is going to be replaced. The bocce courts will be taken care of, and we'll have a first-class facility there. We have to do some maintenance on the Disharoon Lake and drain it and deal with some pipe replacements. There's always some maintenance equipment, mowers and things that need to be dealt with. It's time to replace the clay on the other 4 courts, not just the 2 that we're converting, but the other 4 get done this year. Our vehicles are old. One of the surprises I thought coming in here, maybe we bought like new vehicles all the time. No, we run them into the ground. So the 2007 Chevy has to be replaced. I would not recommend that you buy it at this point in time either. Cart path, we got to look at some things there. And security cameras. We do not have security cameras everywhere we need them. We will. So that's an improvement as well. And you take all that into account, and I'll turn it over to Jane, and she can talk to you about where all that money is going and how it splits out. Jane?
Thank you, Scott. So yeah, so when you look at all of that, you're saying where does it all go, and where do you get all your revenues? Well, obviously, most of our revenues really do come from the assessments, and this is the 60% is the assessments before the $25. So it's the 281 portion of your assessments. Your golf is actually 8%, and that 8% is from your greens fees, your cart fees, and other merchandise that is purchased in the golf shop. Your amenity memberships is about 11% of your total revenue, and that's from your golf, your tennis, your pickleball, your bocce, your wellness center, and the swim club or the aquatics center. So food and beverage is 11% of your of the total revenues, and other amenity departments is 5%, and like Scott had said early, operating departments is about 5% of total revenues for the POA. Next slide, please. So then you look at it and say, well, where are those expenditures overall for the POA? Well, your biggest is your human capital. 49% is for employees, and that includes the benefits, the payroll taxes, 401k contributions, and all of that. So that is 49%. Your cost of sales for merchandise sales, that's from golf and tennis, and also food and beverage, is 6%. Depreciation is about 18%. And the 2% is your interest expense from property loan and from capital leases. And then you have everything else, all your other operating expenses is about 25% of all expenditures, which is explained on the next slide. So the smaller pie slices that you see are all items that are over $100,000. So as you can
Join the meeting.
So as you can see, utilities of all of it is your biggest expense, over $100,000, followed by your property insurance, your garbage collections, consulting fees, and then repairs and maintenance, road maintenance and building maintenance is in there. The road maintenance is in addition to the paving. And then you can see that we're going to be spending some maintenance, some money for repairs and maintenance and building maintenance next year. And then your 48% is all of your expenses that are under $100,000. And those include your printing charges, your postage, your legal fees, the auditor fees, vehicle maintenance, plant materials, the rocks that we're going to be putting in, the big boulders that we're going to be putting in, entertainment, linens at food and beverage, and then of course stocking the fish in Lake Pettit. So those are the big, some of the big items that go into those other expenses. Next slide, please. So this is basically where we're going based on from 2021 versus the forecast that we did. And as you can see, those general assessments and operating revenues are going to go down from where we are this year. But that's really because we're not planning on doing as many closings as what we did this year. This year was the highest year for closings since 2006. So we're really not expecting to do that. Our operating expenses, we are expecting to do about 309,000 more in expenses and operating expenses. And that's really from the human capital for public safety, a lot of landscaping work that we're going to be doing, a lot of work in the communications, and it also includes our property insurance. So in the amenities, we are expecting 146,000 more income to come, and that's really from food and beverage, which I'll explain in the next slide here in a minute. But it's really coming from the food and beverage. And then our net income before depreciation, we're expecting to be a little bit less than what we were this year. But that's because we were expecting to do all of that other stuff. So next slide, please. So this is the key metrics that we do look at every month, and I wanted to show you where we are expecting to be for 2021. Cost of sales, we're expecting to be about 34,000. Our payroll expenses are about 71,000. I do know that GoTom's 55 was before payroll taxes and benefits, so that's why a little bit of a difference right there. Our operating expenses are going to be about 16%, but our cost per dollar, and that's where you really need to look at it, is the cost per dollar, sales dollar in there. We're expecting to be $1.20 for our cost versus the BJL target of 1.16. So I think we've done a pretty good job of where we are. I think there'll be some work that we can do in the future, but that's where we are right now. Next one, please. So I always like to show this slide because this tells you where your assessment dollars are going for Big Canoe. Your operations is 76% of where your assessment dollars go. Your 13% of your assessments, and that's the $281, 13% of that goes towards the amenities and the expenses for the amenities. And this is all after depreciation, not before depreciation. So that's where it kind of skews some of that. And then your net income is about 11% of your assessment. And that's what helps pay for your debt service and capital projects in the future. And so I would like to thank the staff, Nicole, the finance committee, the board of directors for all the hard work that was put into the 2021 budget. And that is my report.
Thank you, Jane. Your report, Scott's report, leaves us in a very positive position of the things that we have done and have accomplished in our financial. As a brief aside, you mentioned Nicole, and if anybody, probably a very few property owners know that name, but she's a CFO of Bobby Jones Links, who played a key role in the entire budget process and allowing us to get to the very positive budget that we have with no assessment increases and significant investments in public safety and communications and project management. I noted earlier that we completed this week an election for 2 new directors. And those 2 new directors, Bob Littell and Amy Tropfenbaum, will be joining us at the conclusion of this meeting as full-blown directors starting their 3-year term. I look very much forward to working with Bob and Amy next year to continue the significant progress that we've made this year. However, because we have 2 positions means we have 2 openings. The first of which is Wayne Crawford will be completing his 3-year term as a member of the board. I mentioned some of his accomplishments and some of the things that he has been involved with of water, chimneys, kitchen remodeling. You can't say enough about it, But one thing that was extremely significant this year was Wayne led the search committee for a general manager that resulted in an extremely positive result of hiring Scott Auer, who is an aggressive, competent, dedicated, committed general manager. So Wayne, I'd like to invite you to make some comments before we go on to the other opening. It's all yours, Wayne.
Thank you, Bob. I'd like to thank first the Big Canoe community for granting me the privilege to serve on the POA board. It's an interesting experience. It takes about a year to figure out who's on first, and then you can really dive in and perhaps make a difference. I'm grateful to Phil Anderson, Jay Goldman, Dudley DeVore, Jim Fahrenholt, Phil Baldwin, Caroline Littell, and the current board for putting up with me and listening to me, and their willingness to guide me through the early phases of learning the important things that make a difference for our mountain home. As important was the Big Canoe supporting staff. You've heard some of that staff talk today, but we certainly couldn't move forward without them, and I appreciate all the hard work and long hours they put into it. I believe the board made the right decision to partner with Bobby Jones Links. What they bring to the table is a significant amount of experience, particularly in food and beverage and other operations, but they've been invaluable in education and training, which was probably one of the biggest shortcomings we had. And so I particularly want to thank Go Tom, Robert, and the team from Bobby Jones for all their hard work. And I believe that a long association with Bobby Jones will prove invaluable. I'm confident the new board that's coming in, since we've been working together for several months, have a leg up on knowing what has to happen. I'm really confident that this board will really guide us well into the 50th anniversary of Big Canoe in 2022. And I think too that it was mentioned earlier, but this has been a challenging year with COVID-19. I think it will continue for a while until we sort ourselves out with vaccinations and how to move forward. But I commend the board for all the work they tried to do to keep up with the county and the governor and others that were providing guidance. So it's been a wonderful experience, and thank you all very much. And thank the community for allowing me to serve on the board.
Wayne, thanks for your comments, and thank you even more for your dedicated, committed service for 3 years. We have one other opening to be filled, and that opening is a position that Jay Goldman has held. Jay was in the midst of his 3rd year on the board when health considerations dictated that he resign. I know that Jay would have much preferred to remain healthy and to continue to make his contributions to Big Canoe. His focus on his health, though, has resulted in substantial improvements, and I'm very thankful for that. Jay was president of the board in 2019, and he led the momentous effort to identify Bobby Jones Links as the best alternative to enter into a management agreement with, that has paid excellent dividends, as Wayne has mentioned. And there's the food and beverage trimming of the loss. We can consider a lot of the efforts that Go Tom and Bobby Jones Links did in putting together a plan and implementing that plan. The search for the GM saved us substantial money and had positive return. The whole budget process, the management system, the satisfaction survey, there's innumerable things that in the background that they've contributed to. I will turn it over to Jay now for his comments on his experience with a committed, substantial contributions to Big Canoe.
Thank you very much, Bob.
I appreciate your inviting me to speak today. But before I begin, relative to Big Canoe, I'd like to say that Debbie and I are thankful for all of the people who have asked about us as we have dealt with our respective health issues. We are both doing well. We are both glad to be here today. I am thankful for all of the dedicated and hardworking people I served with in my 2 years on the Finance Committee and almost 3 years on the board. I am thankful for the opportunity to have worked with others to resolve many issues facing our community. A sample of some of the larger projects I worked on included upgrading the internet service, establishing the POA's working relationship with our water supplier, laying the foundation for the ongoing master plan to upgrade POA facilities and amenities, and hiring Bobby Jones Links to help the POA manage our amenities and strengthen our administrative practices. During this month, the community will be voting will be voting on the capital contribution fee. I hope the POA board will continue to closely monitor whether sufficient funds are raised by the CCF to help pay for the renovations described in the master plan, and do this without creating any special assessments that will create a further burden for paying for all this on the existing property owners. Finally, I wish the new board good luck in tasking a very difficult job. I wish them the wisdom to make good decisions and the courage to do what needs to be done. Thank you very much.
Jay, Wayne, thank you again for your service. We will be recognizing you and your spouses later when we get together. This COVID environment, as Scott mentioned, is kind of unfortunate. We can't recognize you in front of hundreds of people in the chapel, but there will be a crystal memento for you, and there'll be flowers for your spouses. And thanks again. I am now about to wrap up my term as president on the board. I have one more year on the board, but I deemed it more important for fresh views, and there will be an election following this of officers. I'd like to thank all the property owners again for their support, for their volunteering in areas that they deem important, for deep participation in the satisfaction survey, wide participation in voting for the Creek Nine. It does my heart good to see the numbers of people that are voting, are involved, and understand the importance of this community. We will also be having a census that I hope is participated in widely, because we want to understand the changing demographics. We understand that there's been a huge turnover in the percent of homes and new property owners coming into Big Canoe, and want to understand those demographics. So ages, work or not work, from home, children, those types of things. So that'll be coming out probably in the second month of 2021. So now I call for a motion to adjourn, and after we adjourn, we will open up for questions and answers.
I'll make the motion.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The annual meeting is adjourned, and we will wait, Justin, Tim, to see what questions come from property owners.
All right, well, we've had a good crowd here of 175 or so uh, people participating. We've had a general discussion, not really any specific questions, but just two property owners have made points that I could bring up to you. David Hopkins wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that a member list has been posted on the website under the POA tab meeting so that you can see all the members of our association. David Howe has asked, is there something more that we're going to hear about the fees being paid to Bobby Jones Links in 2020 and 2021?
Let me start with that and then invite anybody else who would like to comment. The fees have been published. The base fees, $180,000 in 2020, $180,000 in 2021. And they're also eligible for an incentive. 2020 incentive will be determined sometime early in 2021 following the satisfaction survey and some other results. Those are the facts. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
Bob, one thing I'd like to add is, first of all, I'd like to thank David for his question. You identified what we are paying for Bobby Jones. I'd like to remind the property owners that our contract with Bobby Jones is for 3 years. However, we have a right to terminate this contract for convenience after 1 year and then after the second year thereafter. So we as a board will thoroughly review the cost that we are paying to Bobby Jones, as Bob mentioned, $180,000 a year, versus the benefits that we are receiving, benefits that are tangible and measurable, as well as those that are more difficult to measure, and those that really can't be quantified at all. My personal assessment at this point is that we are certainly getting our money's worth, and I think that is being reflected in the budget that you saw that was presented by Scott earlier today. As far as the incentive is concerned, that incentive is going to be based on 4 very specific criteria that was debated and discussed and approved by the board. It was initially done as part of the Bobby Jones contract, but because of all the impact of COVID, it was significantly revised, made more relevant, and that was done in the August board meeting. Again, that was something that was presented and discussed. And I would like to think that when we do pay the incentive, we will make that scorecard available to property owners to see what the amount of the incentive was and how that was earned. So hopefully that helps to answer any questions and concerns the property owners may have about this relationship.
Bob, I have a comment as well that the property owners, at least from a fiscal standpoint, I understand their concerns regarding the contract, but with Bobby Jones' onset underneath this contract, they also went through and did some revisions in some of the staffing and such, and that helped as far as affording this contract. And I agree with Regis. I think they've done an exceptional job given the challenges that they had this year and the improvements and direction that they're making.
Lou, I'd also like to comment, Scott Auer, being our new general manager, has received great direction and good accountability from the Bobby Jones Link staff. And Tom has been a great mentor. And Scott is well trained. He's very efficient at his job, and he has daily rocks and scorecards that he must accomplish and report both to BJL and to the board. And Scott's doing a great job. And
Yes,
we appreciate the guidance that Bobby Jones Links has provided Scott and our team.
Okay, Regis, Lou, Phil, thank you for your comments and expanding on some of the details. And Are there any other comments about that question, or that has been the only question? The other was a comment.
Well, we have 4 new questions now for you.
Okay, okay, Tim.
Robert Adams asks, what is the source of the funding for the new fire truck?
I'm gonna take it.
Scott, do you want to?
I've got that.
Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, that is part of our capital budget. So that comes from the money that is in that capital replacement fund is where that's going to be. We may be, we're going to purchase it first, and then after we get the fire truck, we will be, we may be getting a loan for that, a loan for it at that time, just for our cash flow purposes in the future.
Can I add something real quick about that? We decided to take advantage of a pretty significant upfront cash discount by doing this.
Robert, thanks for your question. If you're asking the ultimate source of it, the ultimate source is assessments. Those assessments, some of which are then moved into the fund that Jane mentioned. Okay, what's next, Tim?
Can I add one more thing to that?
Sure, go ahead, Reach.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to point out, as Jane mentioned, when we come closer to taking delivery on this fire truck, we will evaluate the potential for taking a loan, but this is not going to be done out of necessity. We do have the resources necessary to pay cash, or as we are paying cash up front. We don't need to refinance this, but looking at all the cash obligations into the future, that as well as the very attractive interest rate that may be available to us, we will do an evaluation to see if it makes financial sense for the property owners to take out a loan to finance this purchase. But the thing I'd like to emphasize, it is not going to be done out of necessity. It's going to be done out of I hate to use the word convenience, but that is kind of more appropriate to explain the underlying reasons why we might consider doing the financing.
Okay, what's next, Tim?
All right, Mike Martindale asks, what improvements will be made to the storage yard?
Scott?
So, yeah, a couple things. So, first of all, it'll be enlarged. Second of all, it'll have much more, the fencing will be improved. The gate itself will be much more secure. We're also looking, for those of you who like camping, like I used to do quite a bit, having a dump station built in at the storage yard is something we're trying to accomplish as well, which is totally convenient when you leave the campground in the rain and you still have tanks that are full. So those are the main things that we're going to be doing with that area.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Tim?
All right, Stacy Johnson asked if Scott could go over the bocce court numbers. He mentioned that the members are basically covering the cost, which is substantial.
Actually, what I said is there's a positive multi-year business case for it. So, right now when you see something like $250,000 in a presentation, what that is saying that's what we have currently in our capital plan. Then per our policy and procedures, what we do is we go out and we get 3 bids. We're in the process of doing that, and the 3 bids are against the same spec, which is really, really key because that wasn't always exactly what happened before. So that way you make sure you get 3 bids that are, equal in nature and all addressing the same requirements. Then we do some reference checks and things. And so we're in that process now. Then we take that, we put that back into the business case, we take it back in front of the finance committee. We look at the return on that 250,000, what's the payback on it? What's the assessment level that needs to be, projected to get a decent payback? And then once that's approved by finance, we take it to the board. So that's the process we're in. The 250 is a placeholder at this point. The only thing I would tell you is we're making sure that the reason we have that number is we wanted to make sure we do not do a half job on this time, that it's a facility that will last for many years, that meets all of the requirements of a brand new amenity at Big Canoe and what it should do. And stay tuned for more. We will not, I always like to tell people, just because we have a capital budget or something, that it's a placeholder plan, and everything gets surgically looked at before we spend a dime. And then we talk about all those things, in board meetings. It will go into a working session. You'll be able to ask questions about it when you actually hear more about the business case, that type of thing. That is the normal policy and procedure we do for any capital project over $100,000. So.
Thanks, Scott, for answering that. We got some more, Tim?
We do. Let me skip forward. Keith and Michael will get to you. Gerald asked a related question. What's included in the bocce project? Didn't we just build new courts a year or so ago?
Yeah, so the main issue that we have with the courts that we have is they were built on an unstable foundation. So it's kind of like building a house without getting the stability correct in your foundation. So as a result, as an ace bocce player that I am, after playing one time, you need a flat surface to roll your ball on. And right now that would make a better miniature golf course than it makes a bocce court. So I think our main problem, honestly, and we did a deep dive at this at a previous public board meeting, the specifications were never well defined for that. So some of the materials that were used are not materials that are going to stand up to weather and warping and things of that nature. We probably didn't really have good, I think the requirements were fluid. I'll just put it like that. So now what you'll have is solid surface. The courts are actually slightly submerged in the ground by several inches. Instead of having wooden bumpers that warp and check and things like that, they will be composite material that won't rot. There are shade structures built in, because you can't stand out there in the middle of a summer day and roll, bocce with the sun beating down with nothing around you. So normally there's shade structures and benches built in bocce courts. And so we are doing that type of thing. We're also providing some handicap access, which was not built into the original plan, so that, again, you can enjoy the amenity longer as you get older. Things of that nature. So there's both kind of the nicer, shade and things like that, but more importantly, making sure that the structure is good and will last and will not, decay and warp and be unstable over time. So those are the things we're doing.
Thanks, Scott. Gerald, I might add, the original project had severe flaws. We asked the audit committee to do an analysis of that, and they came back with a report, and those have been addressed. Among those, as Scott says, the detailed specifications, involvement of the bocce ball rollers, including Scott now, because I saw him roll and I can testify that he's a roller. Including putting a steering committee together of experienced bocce ball players to overlook and foresee the specifications being reviewed by every bocce ball player. So there's been significant things done very differently to make sure that we learn and act from what happened in the past. Tim, what's next?
All right, Keith Waldrop asked, will RV storage lot improvements include providing at least one source of potable water to fill RV water tanks and a concrete pad and water source to provide a place where RV exteriors can be cleaned?
Yeah, so I would tell you, I don't know the answer to that question right now, but what Bob just said is what we're doing on every project. So before we just go do something, we were talking about basketball court the other day. We want to find a group of people who are the users of that facility and make sure, whether it's moving the marina docks, whether it's building a bocce ball court, whether it's building a sports court, whether it's changing the RV storage. The thing that I'm doing is I'm going out and saying, who are the folks that are my customers? And I think I just got a volunteer actually from that question. And what I want to do is make sure before we go and start, like, you know, breaking ground and moving stuff, we know what it is we're building and that we know who's the customer, and the customers are saying, yep, when that's done, we're going to be happy. And that's just something, the engineer in me, I just don't know how else to do it, honestly. So I'd like to reach out to you afterwards and maybe I can recruit you to help me with the specs. But we're not changing any fees on anything until the amenity gets upgraded. So it's not like, oh, we'll change the fee and then maybe someday we'll do that. No. We move the docks, we get that right, we get it all taken care of, and then we change the slip fees. So the same thing would apply to the storage yard.
One thing I'd like to add to what Scott just said is, as we go through these projects and based on a couple of questions about the bocce courts from property owners, we certainly will do this, and keeping our responsibility to be prudent stewards of the property owners' resources in mind. So this will all be done with a sense of fiscal responsibility.
Okay, Tim, more?
Oh, yes, your crowd is still here and still asking questions.
Good.
Michael Ullman asked, well, he'd love to see new soccer goals or nets on the soccer field. Do you have any plans to do that this year?
Scott, you want to address that one?
Yeah, I guess I would say, honestly, that's the first time I've heard that. So I'll make a note and look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Before we go to the next question, I know there was a comment earlier, but I'd like to acknowledge David Hopkins emphasizing that what I stated, that the list is available. Is there another question, Tim?
Well, actually, Teresa Waters asked a related question. She's not sure she understands why the member list was posted.
The member list was posted because a member requested that, and it is required by Georgia code. So in order for us to be legal to respond, it was necessary to do that.
All right, next question. We have two that are related. I'll combine them. Gary Cherry and Stacy Johnson ask about the postal facility. Number one, are there any plans to improve it? And number two, I've heard a new facility is not planned until 2025. Can we move that date up a little bit?
Scott, do you want to address the interim?
Yeah, I can do both a little bit. So on the long-term thing, I think everyone believes there is coming from long-range planning who is looking at all the ongoing requirements for the future of Big Canoe. Our postal facility is pretty dated. It was built in a day where there wasn't an Amazon. The number of packages is huge and growing that go in there. So there is a long-range planning team that is defining the future requirements for a future post office. At the same time, we are looking into where would that belong. So what are the different sites where we could build a post office and meet traffic requirements and parking requirements, safety requirements and square footage requirements and all of those things. So there's an active project going on within long range planning to investigate all those sites. In the meantime, so there is no, until that work is done and until you start to scope out engineering work and architect work and stuff, there is no date. That's what we always say is master plan projects are, again, kind of like the capital projects, they're a roadmap. You might see something on a 2025 list, but until we do the work up front, we may end up saying that's something we take off the list altogether because it just doesn't make financial sense. Or it may be something like, oh, the needs have changed, we need to move that earlier on the list. So we're doing all the preliminary work to answer your question about what is it, where is it 2025, all of that. In the meantime, me, from an operations standpoint, I'm looking at a parking lot problem I have where, you know, I have crumbling walls and barriers that are up on their side, and it's kind of like a slalom course going into the post office. If you get there about between 12 and 2, and the trucks are all parked sideways, so that at the same time that long range planning is looking out farther, I'm looking out shorter. And I'm saying, what do I need to do in the meantime? How much is that going to cost? How long would it take me to get it done? And then we bring both of these facts back together and build a plan and then go through finance, take it to the board, that kind of thing. That's how we work. That's all the diligence that's going on in the background. So that's where we are with the post office at the moment.
Thanks, Scott. Keep them coming, Tim.
All right, we have a final question from Alan De Niro. He asks, has the board taken up consideration of a proposal for a community garden as prepared by a group of resident volunteers?
9 o'clock on Monday morning, they will be looking at a well-prepared presentation that Alan and a self-formed committee of enthusiastic property owners put together to potentially add a community garden to the community, which was extremely well done, thorough, well researched, and I'm taking that in front of the board to start that discussion on Monday.
And I will say that I'm looking forward to seeing the presentation because that same concept was considered in the past and wasn't deemed to be sound financially. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the presentation.
Okay, Tim,
All right, we do have one more question, just came in from Mike Gallagher.
Okay.
He asked, are there any plans to increase parking at the marina?
So that fits into the long-range planning discussion as well. There is a preliminary proposal on how we could reconfigure the land around there and get additional spaces without getting into Army Corps of Engineer issues with, you know, filling in lakes or anything crazy like that. We shared that with the board a few months ago to get their kind of thumbs up, thumbs down on whether they would like to proceed with the engineering evaluation. The answer was yes, please proceed with the engineering evaluation. So we actually do have a engineering company now taking that concept idea and flushing it out to say what would actually be required, how many spaces will we get, what would be a rough order of magnitude on that cost. And again, that goes into our long-range planning list of projects. It's one of the fairly high priorities on that list right now to do the evaluation to figure out what's involved and what the cost might look like. We certainly all realize that the parking at the marina, especially in the summertime, gets to be untenable. And as John always tells me, I don't want to add any more boats and mess up our customer satisfaction until we can deal with the parking issue or solve it in one of a numerous different ways that we're considering.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Any more, Tim?
All right, thank you. That wraps up the Q&A.
Okay, Tim, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Appreciate it. For 7 of us, let's meet at high noon.
High noon.
Okay,
Sounds good.
at the OK Corral. See you there.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
thanks.